I'm live. There we go. Today's lunchtime topic is what makes you useful. I think a lot of folks use the zombie apocalypse as a measuring stick, something that is unrealistic. I don't think it's completely unrealistic. Maybe not real zombies, but if you've ever been to Walmart, there are zombies around. But what we're talking about when we're talking about like the zombie apocalypse, right, is this idea that you're left out on your own with yourself or a small group of people and you have to survive, right? It's a notional scenario, hopefully notional scenario in the U.S. anyways, of the struggles, because ultimately people feel good about overcoming struggles, overcoming adversity, overcoming significant challenges, and when everything is stripped away from you, that poses a very large pool of significant challenges to overcome. From everything from your basic necessities of water, clean water, food, shelter. And in a large part, I think these zombie apocalypse scenarios, this end of world scenarios, whatnot, what it comes down to is everybody finding a purpose, right? You always find the people that become the fodder for these zombie apocalypse movies, right? They're the ones that don't really have a character arc, and they're sacrificed for the benefit of entertainment. But we can also look at this idea is that the people that would be sacrificed if we had a real situation to where, for whatever reason, everybody had to leave their houses and go live in the fucking woods. People that aren't useful to a group or useful to themselves will, I think they would be sacrificed for the greater good of the herd, right? It's no different than how large herds, the weakest always fall behind. They're the ones kind of sacrificed to the lions as a gesture, of the herd, saying, hey, take this as an offering and leave us alone for the time being. And so on and so forth. There's always the slowest one in the herd. We have this whole zombie apocalypse thing happening right now, though. It's happening on social media, and it's happening through the media, and it's made everybody weak, but brain eaters, right? So in a very abstract way, we are in the middle of a zombie apocalypse where people, especially younger folks, have been matriculated through the public education system, have no purpose, no direction, no motivation for anything, and been taught to hate yourself. And then you're just kind of stumbling through life, waiting for something to, waiting to trip on something. You're like, oh, hey. But is that any way to live, right? I've been seriously frustrated by this topic for quite a while, because in the professional world, whether it be in the Army or the university or at work, I have felt that I've always been very effective in teaching and training, mentoring, leading, and accomplishing my mission. On the personal note, though, then I've also got kids that believe that they should be treated as, I don't know, pets. You should just put them in their cage and feed them occasionally. And then that's their expectation. But now these kids aren't pets. They are going to have to learn to take care of themselves. And why is that? Well, because when they're kids, small kids, you have an understanding as a parent or as a teacher or whatever, but usually as a parent, that you have an obligation to take care of these kids and mentor them, train and teach them. Because you're not doing it for your own edification. Oh, well, maybe you are doing it. I would be saying I would do it for my own edification, because eventually I want them to go out and do this on their own. Because the hopes are one day I'm going to be 90 years old and I might need their help again for my last couple of years, and so on and so forth. The idea of family has been split apart, right? That boys no longer don't even want to talk to women. They just think they're sex objects on the internet now. And I think even younger boys now understand the danger women pose to their lives. So they're just checking out her very early. And the schools help with this by demasculating them and by teaching them to hate themselves and to be as weak as possible, because as long as you're as weak as possible, then you pose no threat to women. But what threat do you pose to just being yourself? I think weak men pose more of a threat to women because they start to hate themselves. And when people start to hate themselves, they lash out at others. Anyways, that's my own thought on that. But the whole topic is, what makes you better? What makes you stronger? What makes you worth keeping in the herd, right? And there's many ways that you can be, right? But everybody that participates in a group has to have a skill. You either are a participant or you're waiting for the scraps to fall off the table to feed yourself, right? And I think sci-fi movies, and I think like zombie apocalypse movies and everything always show this. They always show kind of like this lower class of people waiting for the leadership of people to kind of give them tokens of like, well, I'm somehow obligated to keep you alive. So here's some scraps, and then these people slowly starve to death or get infected with, whatever, because their hygiene's terrible because they can't even take care of themselves. And you never see these people stepping up in roles of leadership, even if it's leadership for leading themselves to some sort of success. We used to have these stories of, this was the great American propaganda, the great Russian propaganda, great everything, where it motivated the civilian population of the country to be better than who you are now, right? And then the chip in. That idea has gone away. And what I call it propaganda, I'm not saying that in a negative connotation, but it's supposed to be, propaganda is always a motivational tool, right? It just depends on who's trying to motivate you into what direction. But when you are inspiring people, that is as propaganda to inspire people, because a lot of people need constant kicks in the ass to get motivated and inspired to do things until they latch on, they figure out that this is benefiting them more, at least more than the rest of the people around them. I was watching a Terrence Popp video the other day, yesterday maybe. I don't know, my days have been long. And one of the things he was mentioning is kind of like this checklist for what needs to be in a team, right? Because he's kind of going on the extreme on the prepper side, where we're going to have a grid down situation. For some reason, you're going to abandon your nest of safety and go live in the woods or whatnot. I've never agreed with that thing. I'm like, we have all the resources we have here already. We have our neighbors that we've built teams with. We have our community that we built teams with, and we're stronger being where we're at. And it also gives us a better defensible position because we know the lay of the land. That being said, you need a certain amount of skill sets. And then I think he brought up things like construction people that can build things, weld, mechanics or mechanically inclined, computers and technology, ham radio operations. And then, of course, some of the soft skills that you might need is like intelligence gathering and intelligence, gathering and collection, and also the broad picture of things. And that's a bigger team. That's kind of a command structure, your S2 functions, and then of course you need the leaders that see the broad picture from the S2 functions and want to make sure that the group is prepared for now and in the future. So that's your S3 functions and your S4 functions being operations and supply, right? And when you're building a team, of course, operations and supply on the smaller team might kind of be grouped together, though some people might be more concerned with how we're going to make this work, and they're going to shepherd things like make sure all the vehicles are serviceable, interface with the mechanics, or the people that need to, fix things that are beyond mechanical things, like your welders, for instance. And then they ask for your supply folks. are going to say, hey, we're forecasting that we have, 100 people in our group here, and we need X amount of food per day, X amount of water per day per person. And then we also, coming into the winter, we need to worry about heating and cooling, or heating and so forth. So they're forecasting in the future, right? So those people are useful as well, but that I wouldn't say that that function, unless you're dealing with 1,000 people, would be a full-time function. They still need to have other skills. Can you cook? Can you, mend and fix things? Short story long here is, are you a person that can contribute at all? Or are you just going to be one of the pets waiting for somebody to feel bad for you, right? For young men, especially young men nowadays that have been taught to hate themselves as men and need to be as weak as possible because somehow that's a virtue, the world's not going to be kind to you. Girls of any shape and size can get by. I know of girls that are extremely overweight, very unattractive, that still make money on things like Instagram and OnlyFans. It's a little disturbing to me, but it also, they're exploiting the nature of men wanting to participate in the sexual marketplace in some way. But you young men have to understand that you don't have the qualities of a woman. You're expected to continuously take care of yourself forever and ever. Nobody's ever going to take care of you. And when they do take care of you, they're going to have high expectations of you to, and somehow reciprocate, pay back, right? Pets don't pay you back, right? Pets will pay you back like a dog will pay you back through companionship and through security, right? So that dog is still providing a service. But you young men don't want to provide any service. And I want you to stop thinking this way, because ultimately it's going to come down to your own survival. If you're in a group of people and they're just going to kick you out because you offer nothing to the collective whole, you still have to survive, or you don't. You can just go check out, I would recommend against that, because even though you might get stressed out that nobody wants you around because you provide no service, this should be your motivation. This should be your propaganda to yourself, is like, how can I make myself better? And ultimately, I want to say that you don't have to provide something only in one stream. You can provide things in many streams. For instance, myself, I can go out there, I'll work on cars, I can build, just damn near anything. And through the years of building so many things, I've learned how to, I don't even have to know how something's done immediately. I know I can figure it out, but that comes with experience and intuition. I can weld, I'm certainly not the greatest welder, and I wouldn't hire me to weld something that is going to save lives initially, not without giving me a lot of practice first. But I know I could do that. Right? I'm pretty competent in computers. I'm pretty competent in the security of them, or the offensive security side of it. I'm a ham radio operator, and though I can't, pound rocks together and come up with core metals and make my own wire, I can put radios and antenna systems and so forth into play, and I can do some minor repairs to the electronics with older radios. The newer radios are challenging, but again, I'm not an electronics expert by any means. I'm not an expert in anything. I'm not a paid mechanic. I'm not a paid welder. I'm not a paid builder. I can do all of these things, though. And it comes through a life of experience, right? When I was 17, 18 years old, I didn't have all of these experiences. However, we did start building cars and working on cars when we were 14, 15 years old. We built things, and a lot of times it's because, somebody's like, hey, you got a young boy there. I need somebody to come over and help him, and sometimes the only useful thing that we could do is just pick up heavy things and drag them around. But young boys nowadays can't even pick up heavy things and drag them around because they're physically weak and have no endurance, because they've sat in front of the Xbox for 10 years or longer. And, and their characters online are strong, but they're personally not strong. These are things that you can work on, though. You can put that aside and pick up for a walk. Start for a half a mile, start for a mile. I mean, hell, yesterday we had like 60-mile-an-hour winds, and I had a big piece of plastic that was the liner of my pickup truck blow all the way down my yard. And all the way down my yard is like 2 football fields long. I haven't gotten a lot of physical activity, something I've been working on. But dragging that pickup bed back up into the headwind, of course, it significantly winded me. Not like I was getting ready to pass out or anything, but it showed that I'm out of shape. I need to have that self-reflection and say, hey, you got to do something. I've got to do something about this, right? This is unsatisfactory. I want this to be just kind of a calling card or a calling statement for you to figure out, how do you want to be useful? Do you, if you were dropped into that zombie apocalypse movie, what purpose would you serve? Would you just be the weak one left behind for the zombies to get on while the rest of the group escapes and survives? Or would you be somebody there that the group would want to protect because you provided a vital resource or vital set of skills to the group, right? These are things for you to explore. And when I'm talking about self-reflection, this is when I'm talking about self-reflection. I don't think people nowadays are taught to get really deep into themselves. You block the world out through videos and gaming and smart devices and yada, yada, yada. And when you have all that noise constantly going into your head, you never think about who you are. There was a book I read quite a while ago. It's not in here, and I don't remember the name of it, but it was about this woman that she was in Australia, and for whatever reason, she got a hair up her ass and decided to get a camel and walk across Australia. All right. I think they made a movie out of this too. I didn't watch the movie. I read the book a while back. One of the key things that she learned in there was dealing with herself, right? And that's a strength that everybody needs to learn, is to unplug, hear the silence around you, and learn to deal with who you are. Because I think most people don't want to do this because they're afraid that they won't like themselves. And that's fine. You should find out if you don't like yourself, because then you're going to start digging in and finding out, what don't you like about yourself? Do you don't like yourself because you compare yourself to other people and you always think you're subpar? Or do you not like yourself because you don't have any skills or physical things, and you know that you don't offer anything to the group? But these are the reasons why you don't like yourself. All of these are correctable things. All of these things, and you're not going to have immediate feedback. But you can you can pick one thing and start working on it now. I'm physically weak. Well, gravity is your friend. You don't have to have a gym membership. All you have to do is have a surface to lay on the ground, and you can do push-ups and sit-ups. You tree branch and do pull-ups on. You can go. There's thousands of miles of road right in your general area. You go for walks. Learn to start running. Pick up a cheap bike. There's a lot of places around that give you a free bike. I know a place where I live where they'll give you a bike, but you have to volunteer some time. You volunteer 1 or 2 weekends with them, and maybe they're disassembling old bikes so they can get the parts and start cobbling together new bikes, but they'll give you a free bike for just volunteering your time. You're not putting a monetary value on this other than what your time is. And if you think your time is worth more than that, well, then go buy your bike, right? But if you don't have the money, then you're overvaluing yourself, right? And every shortcoming that you have is correctable. Every shortcoming that you have is something that you can sit down and do the work on. The problem is it's work. Nobody's going to give you anything, especially you young men. Women can survive up until a point, probably till mid-30s, maybe 40, and at best. And before they just get, if they're not useful to the group, they get dropped to the wayside as well, right? They're not going to be. That's the reason why you have a lot of women that are hitting 40 years old, and then at 40 years old they're stuck with their cats because they've not provided anything terribly useful other than their sexuality, right? They're not helping with anything. They think they're too good to help around the house or to help raise the kids or whatever. They're very self-focused and self-centered on just getting attention and whatnot. It only works up to a point. But this is also another reason why they say women mature much faster than men. Well, men have to learn how to do everything. Everything. If you're a man in the house with a family, you have to know how to do everything that everybody else is doing. You have to still know how to cook and clean. And then this funny thing is how many women don't cook and clean anymore. They're actually kind of useless, and it makes it to where they're kind of useless to themselves. And they call this empowerment, but it's not empowerment, right? And for you young men, you have to realize this too. If you're completely useless, this isn't empowerment. This is the exact opposite of being empowered. I feel empowered because I can be dropped off and left alone, and I know that I can take care of myself, right? I can hunt, I can build shelters, I can survive, I can find water and clean water. Your basics, right? And then I know how to, collect intelligence and find out what's going on around me. I know how to protect myself. And I may not be a master in all of these things because, your true trade craftsmen master in that one thing. They're masters in building shelters. They're masters in, X, Y, or Z, right? But I have a good enough round skill set that I know that I'd be fine, right? And I want you boys to do the same thing. I want you to round yourself out. Understand what can you do it by yourself, right? And lastly, I want to conclude that you should be able to take care of yourself without anything, right? Or that should be a goal of yours. But building friends and building those relationships and to build your cluster, build your team, that's what ultimately is going to make you stronger, because then you don't have to. You might be able to do all of the things, but now you don't have to. That way more gets done. You don't need 10 people out there all building a shelter all at the same time. And then you don't need all people out there. Maybe at specific times you do, but generally speaking, you want one person doing one thing, one person doing another thing. And that way, a lot of things get done all at the same time. You have multiple streams of activity all coming together at the same time. And this is kind of planning, right? And this is what you do in the regular world is you plan, you have multiple streams of activity happening at the same time, and they all culminate into an objective, whatever objective you're trying to meet. My lunchtime brief here is to say, make yourself useful. And if you're sitting here right now and you have nothing that you feel that you're useful for, this is where you start. Day zero. You need to identify first and foremost that you're not useful to yourself. You're not useful to the group. Where do you start from now? At the best, or at the very bare minimum thing you can do is be strong. The world's going to be made up of strong people and smart people, and then strong and smart people, right? And being a strong person is the easiest thing. You don't have to learn anything. All you have to do is just build muscle mass, build endurance. And you can be a complete meathead and not understand how anything works and so forth, but you can still be strong, and that still can be useful to a point. All right. Anyways, this is my lunchtime brief for the day. I'm going to try to make this a little bit more consistent. I've been very inconsistent lately. It's just been very busy. I'm still moving in, and everything's kind of a wreck right now. So I'm trying to get my battle rhythm in place on what I'm doing, work, and I want to do these lunchtime briefings and maybe do one or two videos a week on in depth on a topic and so forth. And today's topic is what makes you useful to yourself, and what makes you useful to your herd. Go out there and be successful, and have a great day.